Good morning and welcome, or evening, or afternoon, or wherever you are in the world. Graveyard shift somewhere. Welcome to the Mind, Body, Spirit Network's High Vibe Tribe expert interview. And today we have an expert who we interviewed last May, and we're so grateful to have her back because, as I like to call her, she is a cosmic love muffin to the stars. I hope you don't mind that name, Sandra, but it just came to me.
It's a first.
And I used to be a muffin queen, by the way. I used to own a restaurant on Nantucket called the Morning Glory Cafe. And I don't know if you've ever had a Morning Glory muffin. You ever heard of that?
No.
They're all over the country now. And the recipe was like in gourmet magazine's recipe of the decade back in the 90s or something. I didn't create the recipe.
Yeah.
But I made tens of thousands of those muffins over the years. So,
wow.
You're my cosmic love muffin, honey. I cooked you up. Get me in the oven today. Okay, listeners and viewers, here's the question of the day to get your interest piqued in what we're going to talk about today. How would you like to learn potent healing tools and experience life-changing ceremonies in the way of the shaman and come to understand the meaning of transfiguration? Now, Sandra, transfiguration came up for me in regards to an Andrew Harvey thing that's going on at the Shift Network right now. And I'm like, what the, I kind of get what transfiguration is, but I'm like, you know what? Why don't I go to my handy online dictionary and look it up? So the Merriam-Webster Dictionary standard definition, one of them is an exalting, glorifying, or spiritual change. I'm like, sign me up for that one. So before we get into that, my dear, everyone listening and viewers, we're bringing back Sandra Ingerman. And Sandra was with us back in May when she was promoting an event called the Spirits of Nature Global Community Program. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But first off, Sandra is an award-winning author of 12 books, including Soul Retrieval, Medicine for the Earth, Walking in Light, and the Book of Ceremony. She has created multiple audio programs, albums, and online courses produced by Sounds True and the Shift Network. She's a world-renowned teacher of shamanism and has been teaching for more than 30 years. She has taught workshops internationally on shamanic journeying, healing, and reversing environmental pollution using spiritual methods. Sandras are recognized for bridging ancient cross-cultural healing methods into our modern culture, addressing the needs of our time. Sandra, welcome back, honey pie. So good to have you.
Thank you, Liz.
Now, I want to bring the attention, you guys listening and viewing, that I'm an affiliate of Sounds True and the Shift Network. So I bring on their experts when they have big events and course launches because it's really aligned with what we're doing here at the Mind, Body, Spirit Network. And two of our past interviewees, Jane Burns and Christina Pratt, are both former students of Sandra. So you're producing a lot of offspring, my dear.
Well, that was my intention.
I know. I see
that was always my intention.
Nice. And I had a thoroughly enjoyable interview with both of them, by the way.
Oh, great.
and Jane Burns's book, Up a Tree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you read that, Sandra, or heard about it.
Absolutely.
I found it really fun, a fun read.
Yeah.
And then at the back of the book, and this is what really her book got me interested in understanding what shamanic journeying is. I really got it when she started to describe it in the book. And then at the back of the book, it says like 10 lessons on how to do it. I'm not very good at it. I've attempted it. I'm like, all right, I got to go to the next lesson. But I love the whole concept of it. And it's really fascinating what you guys do. I mean, it's like a whole different world out there in the shamanic journeying land.
Well, we live in a multi-dimension universe, and there's dimensions of reality that can take us into such a rich place and such a wealthy place that brings back the light in our eyes and the joy in our life and meaning. And most of us in the Western culture live in a two-dimensional world. and we're missing out on a lot.
Oh, do you go on a journey every day, Sandra? I mean, if I could do it, I probably would. I would like never get work done.
Yeah, right. Well, I used to do formal journeying every day. I had my formal journeying practice, but it's been 35 years since I was introduced to shamanic journeying. And so I journey when I take walks, while I'm doing the dishes. I'm always downloading guidance. And so I still do formal journeys when I work on behalf of clients, but I get so many downloads around my own life and my own work. If I started adding journeys to it,
you never get anything done. That's funny. So so a journey can happen with your eyes open.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And for many of us who've been journeying, a lot of my students share the same thing as me. At some point after years of journeying, the question is, shamanism is a discipline. It's a really strong discipline. So you have to know what reality you're in. I once had a student who got pulled over by a police officer because she was driving 90 miles down the freeway, and she was journeying, and the cop pulled her over. That's not shamanism. That's moving into psychosis, and that's moving into danger, because you're putting all these people at risk. Shamans know exactly what reality they are in at all times. So it's really a discipline. It's not something you flip into. It's a discipline. But my life from the second I wake up in the morning is to be with my spirits in deep relationship with them. I've developed a strong discipline over 35 years. And so they speak to me when I need guidance and when it's safe.
Oh, right. So do
Yes.
they come in and provide guidance just by understanding what's kind of brewing within you? Like you haven't necessarily spoken it out loud, but it's brewing, and they kind of surprise you and say, hey, I see you've been thinking about this.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of both. I used to have these journeys. I mean, I've worked with the Egyptian goddess Isis for a long time as a spiritual helper for me. And I used to have these journeys. I don't have them anymore. I actually miss them a lot, where she used to come in and say to me, you know what your problem is?
Do tell.
She would dump some big issue on me, which she was always right,
Really?
always
a big issue.
And so, but, if I'm teaching an online course or I'm getting ready to do something, I love to take a long walk in nature and watch for the omens. And that's where I get a lot of my visionary experiences of the ceremonies I need to lead, the specific elements I need to bring into the ceremony, how I need to lead the ceremony, the steps. That I'll get while I'm taking my walks,
Oh, nice.
Things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you receive in the form of visions or hearing or feeling or all of it?
I'm very clairaudient.
Okay.
That's my biggest psychic sense.
Okay.
And I'm also clairsentient, so I feel things in my bones. I'm not very clairvoyant, but I do see in a formal journey. But in my dreams, I hear the spirits. In my walks, the spirits are talking to me, just like I'm walking along with my best friend,
I've had those experiences as well, Sandra, and really strongly when I take a walk, I hear out of like, Liz, I love you. I'm like, like, where are you? And I mean, it's just funny. It's just like clear as day. I'm like, okay, I hear you.
Yeah. Well, in some of the South American traditions, it's taught that when people walk through the rainforest, they walk with eyes open all through their bodies, their whole body or eyes, So we have to really look at, that's an extreme example of what we've lost in the modern day culture, because our perception is so limited of what we allow ourselves to see, hear, and feel. And we are missing out on so much of the beauty of life because we don't know how to listen. We don't know with our invisible ears. We don't know how to see with our invisible eyes. We don't know how to feel in our bones or trust that, like Indigenous people always have and our ancestors always have. That's how they survived, you know.
Right.
And I use this example all the time because it's so clear. When there was the tidal wave in Thailand, the only beings that got hurt were humans. Every animal knew the tidal wave was coming and ran to safety. Humans just stayed on the beach because they didn't get the messages that every single creature got. So humans were the only ones who got hurt. We think about all the issues and events coming up in our lives and in the world today. Don't we want our invisible radar guiding us? And that means we have to expand out of our limited way of perceiving what's happening in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share on that note, and on the note of journeying, I wanted to share a story with you that I was driving in my car, bringing my dad to get his oil changed or something, like a 2-hour drive. We had to go fix the car. And I didn't know what it was at the time, but now that I understand, I was taken on a journey in a heightened state of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I was going through something, but I was like, and I came back and I'm like, how the hell did that happen? That I'm driving. In fact, I was taken on a journey with Jesus, my chum. And I was just like, hey, what are you doing here, dude? We're very friendly and, and he showed me like 4 different scenarios of something and I couldn't remember it. But when I came back in, I'm like, oh my God, how did I not crash the car? How did that happen? And what was going on? So it was interesting that it was an amazing grace of a journey, that's for sure. And I was shown and felt something tremendous. Like it was almost impossible for me to contain myself. It was like a magnet of grace that was drawing me. And I'm like, oh my God, how did I do that? So do you have a book on journeying? Is one of those talk about journeying?
I have actually a few books on journeying, but okay. I did write a book that Sounds True put out called The Shamanic Journey, A Beginner's Guide. And it's like 76 pages and gives you every single, everything I have to teach journeying.
Oh, nice.
Then I answer every question I've ever been asked in 35 years of journeying, and I give journey suggestions, and it comes with a drumming CD. So it's this little tiny package, but it gives you everything. Wow. And then in Walking in Light, I teach people how to journey, and I also share the Healing with Spiritual Light work, which the course is on. So I give people both in Walking in Light how to journey, and then actually all the material in this new online course is also in Walking in Light.
Oh, cool. All right, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
I want to in May, you launched the Spirits of Nature Global Community Program, which was like a 9-month thing, Sandra, or longer?
Oh, no, what happened is first I taught a 7-week course on the same material.
Okay.
And we weren't ready to end. I mean, it was phenomenal and nobody wanted to end. But what happened for me is I couldn't do another weekly course every week. So we created a 6-month course where we came together once a month. We continued working with the material in the meantime, but we came together once a month for 6 months. And then at the end of that, nobody was ready to stop either. So we're still going on Facebook, but.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
No. So what was the intention of that?
The intention of this whole course, and it was the first time I taught it in 35 years, and I can't believe I didn't start out my teaching with that course, because it's a foundation course for anybody interested in shamanism. In the shamanic worldview, it's understood that everything in nature is our ally and is our kin, is family. And so I wanted to teach people how to work with nature as kin. We oftentimes do things like sit with a tree and ask it for advice. I mean, a lot of people do that. But I didn't let anybody do that in this course. You could not ask nature for advice. You had to develop a friendship. So if you wanted to talk to a tree, you asked first, may I step into your field of energy? And you wait for a yes. And then you ask it, how was your day? And tell me about your family and your ancestors. And what have you seen all the years that you've been standing here? So we actually learned how, with all living beings, how to see them as family and to say, may I step into your field of energy and talk as friends? You know, what was your life like? What have you seen over the years? And we even did that, you know, with people living in New York City, sit on the concrete and talk to the land, and what's the story of the land? And what happened for most of us, because some people got stuck in the suffering of nature, but most of us, it was a surprise. I wasn't expecting this. I never taught this course. I didn't know what to expect. We ended up walking through a portal where we ended up in a dimension where most of the group, and we had a huge group sign up for this workshop, where most of the people in the group could only now see beauty. And I hitchhiked with them over into that other dimension, because when you show kindness and honor and respect to nature, all of a sudden everything changes. Animals start to show up where you live, whether you're in an apartment or whether you're in the country. So people were having all these animals and creatures show up, and the elements got more loving and helped them out more with omens and signs. And we just stepped into beauty. We just really stepped out of this crazy, stressful dimension of reality that most of the collective is living in, and we stepped into a whole nother place. And so I call it a foundational work before you even learn shamanic journeying, because shamanism is a nature-based practice. And so if you don't understand how to connect with nature, you're never going to really be able to understand shamanic journeying or how to perform ceremonies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So how big of a crowd did you end up with, Sandra?
Oh, we had 1,000 people.
Oh my God. I mean, the ripple effect of that is huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome.
And they all shared, you know, part of my courses is always, and every course is, how are you going to take this back to your community and teach everything I just taught you?
Oh,
so that's part of all my courses.
You are the rippler woman. All right. So let's talk about your upcoming course. So let me just read a little bit here. So Sandra has found that as conditions on the planet and in our lives keep changing, so many of us are searching for ways to move into harmony, to make a difference, and to be in service. And for over 20 years, Sandra has had the honor and privilege to teach annual workshops with shamanic practices that create positive change for all of life. This work is her passion. And today we're introducing Sandra's upcoming 8-week course, is it? It's an 8-week course.
Yes.
Produced by the Sounds True. That's called Healing with Spiritual Light, the Shamanic Power of Transfiguration to Heal Ourselves, Each Other, and the Earth. And she is delighted to make these teachings available to you for the first time as this online course. And at the heart of this training is a practice that she calls transfiguration, and which we introduced at the beginning of this, at the beginning here So what is transfiguration as it relates to the shaman?
Yeah, well, I definitely will talk about that. I just want to back up for 1 second and just say that I've been teaching this course around the world since 2000. And it's been so life-changing for people that I actually reached out to Sounds True a few years ago and asked them if they would film a live course. So this course was actually filmed live with a group of about 70 people. Every session we called in, we knew this was going to be an online course, so every session we called in and welcomed every one of you that's going to sign up for the course. So we brought you into our circle during every single session because
that's awesome.
shamanism is outside of time.
Wow.
So I asked Sounds True to do this because I know I still have years left in me, but this work has been so life-changing for everybody who has been practicing it. I wanted to make sure it was available for descendants until it's not needed anymore. And so I asked Sounds True to film it so that people could take it for as long as they wanted. So what happened for me, just to be brief, because there's a long story of how I got into this work, but I was really interested in miracles, researching miracles, because in spiritual traditions, we know about miraculous healings. We all know about miraculous healings. And I wanted to look at how do we take what we know about miraculous healings from thousands of years, from every single spiritual tradition, not just shamanism, but what are the core elements that go into creating a miraculous healing, and how can we take those same elements to work with the toxicity on the earth. So that was my intention in the 1990s, was to research every spiritual tradition and look at their miraculous healing stories and look at the elements. And there were 7 elements that I saw in common. And one of the things that I saw in common was this principle of working with light. And so what happened for me was I had a dream, and I had just come back from Egypt. I actually developed, I wrote my book, Medicine for the Earth, which is what this course is based on. And I wrote that book while during a few years of bringing groups to Egypt. So the book started the week before I brought my first group to Egypt, and I finished it after one of my groups to Egypt. And so the Egyptian teachings were really strong. And so one night I had a dream, and the Egyptian god Anubis came to me in the dream. And he introduced himself to me, and he said, the missing piece of your environmental work is transfiguration. And I didn't know what transfiguration was either. So I woke up in the morning and I said to my husband, do you know what transfiguration is? And he said, I'm not really sure, but I think it means shape-shifting. So I did what you did. I went to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, but I saw shape-shifting. I didn't get that romantic definition. I guess I didn't read on enough or something. And so then I was confused, because in shamanism, we know that shamans shapeshift into wolves and ravens and all these stories. But what does shapeshifting have to do with reversing environmental pollution? So I held the question. And my next door neighbor at the time was a born-again Christian. And so we lived next to each other for many, many years. And I was always the witch who lived next door. You know, she never wanted to have anything to do with me and was very vocal about that.
Oh.
And so years later, many years later, because we were neighbors for many years, there's a knock at the door, and there's my neighbor, Catherine. And she tells me that she has liver cancer, and can I help her? And so that started this unbelievable relationship between the two of us. And so she would come over and we would lie on my office floor on the nice soft blue rug, and we would just chat. And one day I said to her, Catherine, I had this dream about transfiguration, and I don't know what it means. And she jumped up and she got so animated, and she started quoting the Bible. When Jesus performed his miraculous healings, he was a light that was brighter than any light that had been seen, and anybody who touched his robes were instantly healed. And, the stories go on and on and on. And then, as you know how the universe works, after that conversation with Catherine, I could not open a book and not see the word transfiguration. It was like everywhere. I was reading a Scottish romance novel, and it was so in my research, I did see that in all spiritual traditions, when you see mystic gurus and the real shamans, the true shamans that had those big initiations, when they're performing their miraculous healings, everybody sees this incredible light that is flowing from them out of their body. And so I started to bring that into the work. I started with just a group of friends who came down from Colorado, and we tried some scientific experiments using polluted water. We polluted water with gasoline. We took deionized water that had no minerals or chemicals that would interact with anything. And we put a common pollutant in the environment, ammonium hydroxide, in it. And the first night, I had everybody call in their spirits and say, this water is polluted, fix it. And then we did the tests, we did the scientific tests, and they did. They fixed the water. Oh. And then the next night, I asked the spirits to stay out. You may not participate in this ceremony. You can watch us, but you may not participate. And I had us, and we had been practicing throughout the day of how to go beyond our body and our mind, because who we are beyond our body and mind is we're spiritual light. That's our authentic identity. That's who we really are. Our body is just clothing this light. And so in that ceremony that night, we had no spiritual help. We just radiated. We didn't send. We radiated like a star. A star doesn't go, ooh, I'm going to shine on that water. A star just shines. Oh. So we just radiated, knowing that the outer world will always reflect back to us our inner state of consciousness. So we radiated, and we performed the principle of it's who we become that changes the world, not what we do. It's the feminine principle of healing through presence, not through trying. And we got the same results of the water coming back to neutral that we got the night before when we asked the spirits to fix the water. So that's transfiguration. It's where we radiate our light, and then the outer world reflects that state of health back to us. So we don't label anything as sick, toxic. We only see everything in its divine perfection, and then we radiate our light along with it.
Nice.
It's a long answer. I'm sorry.
Takes some effort to get to that point, that place, and that understanding, right, Sandra?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then let's talk about the course and how the course came about. I mean, it's based on the book.
Right.
right? The Medicine for the Earth book.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what happened is as I kept researching more and more, I came to that there are two phases of the work that we have to do to reverse environmental pollution on the planet. The first phase that we have to do is we have to change ourselves, because if the outer world is reflecting back to us our inner state of consciousness, is the outer world reflecting back to us all the problematic thoughts, all the nightmare daydreams we're putting out, as we think throughout the day of all the terrible things, we're creating that through our imagination. In shamanism, words have an amazing amount of power. Words can dismember, words can create. And so in the course, the hard part of the course, but it's the wonderful part of the course, it's the easy part of the course, it's taking it out and living it, is I have people do the personal work of how do we use our words to create health or illness? How do we use our thoughts to create health or illness? How do we use our daydreams to create health and illness? So we do a lot of the personal work of how do we transmute those negative states of consciousness that come up throughout the day. And in the principle of alchemy, how do we turn heavy-leaded consciousness into gold light consciousness? And how do we connect with nature? So I have people learn that the elements are sentient beings, earth, air, water, and fire are alive. And so in the course, we merge with all the elements to learn about their sentient nature and how much they give us life. Without them, there is no life. And the personal work of what do we need to transmute throughout the day, and how do we do that? How do we actually live a spiritual way of life that reflects back to us the state of the world we want to be living in? So it's the personal work that we all have to do every day throughout the day. That's the discipline. And so those are really key principles of the work. And then there's the ceremonies that we can do where we can come together as community to do blessing ceremonies. So I show people in the course how to do a fire ceremony. You can also do it as a water ceremony, and I share that in the course of how to ask for blessings for the planet. And we do a lot of transfiguration work and how to use transfiguration to heal the planet, but also for people who are working with clients. How do you bring in using transfiguration as a healing force with your clients? So we do that in the course. And so we do ceremonial work, but we also look at what are those spiritual practices that we have to incorporate into pretty much every minute of our lives to transform our lives and create the world we want to live in. And so it's an incredibly full course. There are so many practices and ceremonies in this course. People are always, they're in bliss at the end, but they're exhausted at the same time. And people will have 8 weeks to spread things out, where in Estes Park, we did them at 9 in the morning until 9 at night every day. So
wow.
Of course, at least is spread out and you have the chance to integrate all the material. There's a lot of material in the course.
All right, let me stop you right there. First of all, I want to remind people that this is filmed with live, with the course going on with 70 people, right?
Yes.
And interaction going on, and Estes Park is amazing.
Right.
Right. It's just outside Rocky Mountain National Park. Beautiful. Did you guys go up into the park? or just stayed in Estes?
Yeah, we did. I keep people so busy, but one of the things I do in the Healing with Spiritual Light workshop is have people, I don't force anybody to do it, but to get up and sing to the sun in the morning. We do that as a group. Because again, that's learning about how to connect with nature, and that the sun is what gives us life. It's not the electrical company that gives us life. And so, it's a really important part of the work. And so, we get to see some of the beauty of Estes Park, and all the staff who worked on this film. Every time I get an email from them, they say that out of every course they've ever filmed, this was the most life-changing course for them too.
Wow.
So the whole staff was being transformed while we were transforming. It was just a beautiful, beautiful week together. And it's a beautiful field of energy to step into together.
Now, did you stay at that big hotel there? Is that where you held it?
Yeah.
What's that one called? The Stanley Hotel?
No. We stayed at the Estes Park. It's a Y camp.
Oh, okay. So, not that big white hotel that you see.
No, I've been to the I've been to the Stanley.
Oh, okay.
No, I like to teach this course at retreat centers where we eat together and hang out together.
Nice. Oh, so how many days was the retreat, Sandra? How long did it take?
It was 4 full days.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then each course is, geez, that's a lot of teaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
So this is their most for Sounds True, what they told me is this is their most extensive online course that they've ever had.
That's huge. Congratulations. That's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this.
Okay, so listeners, I just want to let you know, so the name of the course is Healing with Spiritual Light, the Shamanic Power of Transfiguration to Heal Ourselves, Each Other, and the Earth. And you can register for this at the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/healing-spiritual-light, or go to our online courses area. You'll find it there as well. But in addition, Sandra has a great freebie for everybody, which we want to share. And it's called Transfigure and Transform Your Toxic Thoughts. Now, Sandra, can you tell us a little bit about this? It's a 2-hour freebie. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, I think what Sounds True did is they made the first session free. So people can decide by watching the first session free, is this something you would like to engage in? And I'm very proud of my opening lecture that I do for this course. It really spells out. I was a marine biologist. That's how I kind of got interested in this topic. And I start from the whole history and all the scientific experiments that we did, and the 2 phases of the work, all the work that we have to do on ourselves personally, and then the ceremonies. So it's a really long introduction to the course, and it's really inspiring. And
I'm totally taking it.
Yeah, and it's free.
That's us. So if you want to register for this part, the freebie part, you'd go to the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/transform-toxic-thoughts. But you'll find links to all of this below the video or the podcast or Facebook, wherever you're seeing this, we'll have links to everything. So that you guys, this is really for listeners that are in their car, like, I don't really want you writing it down, but speak to your phone. I don't know how you do that. You say, Alexa, make a note. I don't know how you do that in the car.
I've never been able to figure that out. My husband can do it. But
can he? So I want to share something kind of interesting that's along the lines of ceremony and blessings. And I have this friend whose family owned a significant amount of hotels in Aspen. And Aspen, coming into Aspen has a really rich, amazing history that's super interesting to know. But her family owned something called the Limelight Hotel. And there came a point where they wanted to renovate the hotel and build a building next to it. But she's really kind of a shaman, this woman. And I met her recently, and I had really jived with her. And before I met her, there was something about the Limelight Hotel that I just love. I mean, there's something about it that draws me to it. I didn't know what it was. And she said before they renovated the hotel and built the hotel next to it, they brought in, I think, Native American medicine people to bless it, to do whatever it is that you guys do to the land, which was really kind of interesting that this particular point in Aspen, I am parked there. I want to be there. I like to go use the restroom there, whatever it is. I mean, is there something that's going on when that happens, Sandra? Or do you have any insights into that, or it'd be a guess?
Well, it's inspirited. It's an inspirited place. It's been blessed. It's alive. The soul has been returned to it, and the soul is shining, and the soul is radiating. So it attracts, it magnetizes people to it. I mean, one of the things that I teach in the course is about the power of presence. And so it could be the power of presence of a person. It could be the power of presence of a land. We tend to gravitate towards places and people who are emanating light.
Yeah. Now, when I heard this story, I'm like, when I buy my next home, I want to bring someone in. Would you do it before you buy it or after you bought it, Sandra? When's the best time?
Oh, I would start immediately. I like with retreat centers, when I book a retreat center, I start working a year in advance, talking to the spirits before I bring a group there. Nice. So as soon as you can start talking to the spirits and get those blessings and get that love and light emanating, then it just grows naturally.
God, woman.
Evolves naturally.
So before you did this event, did you have like a conference room full of spirits and loving entities? Like, okay, let's plan this together.
Well, what I do is my exact procedure, because I've been doing it for 35 years, every country, every city I go to, every retreat center I teach at, I call in the helping spirits of the land and the spirit of the land itself. And I say, I'm bringing a group of people. We don't know your ways, because we don't know the ancient ways of the spirits of the land. We don't know your ways, but we're coming with an open heart to learn how to live a healthy life and how to bring love, healing, light, and balance back to the planet again. And I ask that you hold us in love while we work, and that you remove obstacles to our work so that the work goes with grace and it goes smoothly. And so that we join with you in your love for the earth, and we're coming to learn how to be caretakers of the earth. And so that's what I do for every workshop, and I start it the day I contract with the center. I do that invocation every day.
Now, have you ever come across resistance?
No, never.
No. Super loving. Why would you? But who knows? And what's the energy of a city versus the country? Is it a different energy or not? It's the same?
Well, for me, it's the same. Every city has a spirit, and again, that's actually one of the practices that I teach in the Healing with Spiritual Light workshop. Is I teach you how, that's a journey that you actually do in the workshop, is meeting the spirit of the city where you live and asking it for advice on how you can live more in harmony with its energy. Because I found that if you do that, people find the relationships they're looking for, they find the jobs they're looking for, their gardens start to flourish. So that's an actual journey that we do in the Healing with Spiritual Light workshop.
Okay, that one alone is worth its weight in gold. To relate with where you live is so awesome. To even, I love that, honey.
I know, and your allies and your friends, and all of a sudden all the obstacles in your life change, the challenges in your life change, because you're an ally, and where you live is an ally for you, and it's going to protect you, and it's going to try to help you create the best that life has to offer.
That's awesome. I had an amazing experience yesterday, which we don't need to go into, but I kind of used the heart. I'm like, you know what? Well, I'll tell you real quick. My battery died. My car battery died because I was on the phone with the car on slightly and I was draining the battery. I didn't know it. It was cold out too. So I'm like, crud. I called, see if I could get roadside assistance from Subaru. It had long expired. I'm like, all right, I'll call. Subaru was across the street. I had 3 dogs in the car and it's cold. I'm like, all right, maybe I can just, I said, I'm just going to get out of the car, walk the dogs, and start connecting with the heart and using the tools that I know I have. And I'm like, God, I have faith that I can make a meaningful connection through all of this today. And then as I'm walking the dogs, I'm thinking, you know what, I'll just go buy a battery and exchange it. It'd be a lot easier than towing it and all that, because I was in a mall. I could find a battery. So I get back to the car. I'm like, okay, I'm going to look at the battery, see what tools I need to change the battery. The hood wasn't open for a second. A woman pulls up, and I have 2 parking spaces open next to my car. She pulls up into the far one. She gets out. Do you need help? No. I'm like, well, yeah, but I think I got to jump my car. She goes, oh, I'll help you. She's an older woman too. She's like, I have jumper cables. We'll figure it out. So we pull out the jumper cables. I pull out my manual. I look how to jump, and not a second later, she's seeing this gentleman walk over. She's like, can you help us? He assured us how to put on the cables. Within a minute, we're out of there. And I was like, going through the whole, I got to get towed. The dogs are going to freeze. I got to get my dad to, this whole thing. I'm like, you know what? Let's not go there.
Right. Yeah.
So it was kind of fun to use that, invocation, healing prayer, kind of what you're talking about. Make your life a healing prayer and a devotional thing. And I've learned about the power of devotion, and not in a religious-y way either. It's just loving. I'm devoted to life and being light and funny and having a good time and loving and appreciating nature and everything. It's kind of that.
You do a great job, Liz.
Thank you. So that was kind of a cool, I'm like, awesome. I'm like, thank you. I noticed. I really noticed how easy that was. So it was a fun little lesson. All right, my dear. I have one other question. Do you have indigenous in your ancestry, or what's your ancestry?
Well, I think we all have indigenous, because we all come from 3 mothers, and we're all related. This whole thing that some people have certain blood and some people don't. We all come from the same ancestors. I do know that my mother's side of the family is from the Ukraine, and my interest in shamanism has always been Siberian shamanism. I love South American shamanism, but that's not been my path. I haven't studied it at all. I only study the Siberian, the Inuit traditions. That's what I've been drawn to over my 35 years of shamanism. And the big question is my father's side of the family. We actually don't know where his family comes from. And once my life calms down, I've been saying this for 66 years now, once my life calms down, I'm going to do some research, because it's really important for me to find out those roots,
Yeah. My dad and I sit down to PBS in fact, tonight, there's a show called Finding Your Roots on PBS. It's really well done. And at the end, they always have some DNA stuff where some people have a really strong influence somewhere. Otherwise, we're all a mixed bag of mutts too.
Right, exactly.
All right. I have one other question for you. And that is, do you see nature beings when you're out walking around? Because I know some people see stuff. I'm like, I had a niece who said, I see a leprechaun. I'm like, really? She's like, yes. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, for me, the definition of nature beings is everything that's alive. So I call nature beings plants, trees.
Okay.
When you run into a fox or a snake, or I've run into bear in my walks, as nature beings. But then there's what we call the hidden folk, and that's an exercise in healing with spiritual light work.
So that really exists. People can really see this.
Yes, so I actually have people journey to meet the hidden folk where they live. And I call them the hidden folk because, some leprechauns are little, but then there's the forest angels that could be 100 feet high, or the guardian spirits of the forest. And then there's the Davidic realms and the little fairies. So I just call them the hidden folk. And we do journey to them because they're the caretakers of the earth. And they do a wonderful job, and they're not happy with humans. And so I have people go to meet the hidden folk, and they live in New York City, and they live in LA, they live everywhere, and ask how they can join them in partnership with how to be good caretakers of the earth. So that's another exercise that we do.
Nice. Now, I know this may sound airy-fairy to many, but I have too many people that tell me, I see this. I'm like, and I have my own stuff I see and hear and feel. So it's that expanded dimension. Become aware, as opposed to the two-dimensional life that most of us lead.
The two-dimensional life isn't that much fun.
No.
You open up into these non-ordinary realms, and there is just magic, beauty, lots of laughter, lots of seriousness too, lectures on, come on, humans, get your act together.
Okay. We're getting there. Sandra, such a joy to have you, my cosmic love muffin to the stars. And everyone listening, thank you for joining us. Please, if you have a question for Sandra, apparently she hasn't missed one in 35 years. I'll be sure to pass it on if you have a question for her. And again, her freebie, which is a great place to start, a 2-hour session, is the Transfigure and Transform Your Toxic Thoughts. And you're going to get a look at what's going on in Estes Park with this live group. That's so cool. That's part of that, right?
Yes.
You'll see that. Cool. All right. So you're going to go to the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/transform-toxic-thoughts. And if you search in the site for Sandra Ingerman, you're going to get my last interview with her. All kinds of good stuff from the cosmic love muffin to the stars. And thank you. If you guys enjoy what's going on here, please subscribe to our podcast at the what's our podcast? Sorry. highvibetriberadio.com. And our YouTube channel is highvibetribetv.com. And thank you for joining us. Sandra, thank you for joining us from Santa Fe. I'm going to have to come visit you now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Liz.
I'd love to do that.
Great pleasure.
Goodbye, everybody.